Okay, I think I've gotten it started now. Hi, Facebook world. Thank you for joining us. This is our first CBA Facebook Live event. I think I'm just going to introduce myself and talk about my kind of educational background, how I ended up in Kentucky and in Lexington, how I ended up with CBA, and then I will talk about CBA a little bit and our Lexington team specifically, and maybe a little bit about being a BCBA in general and kind of what that looks like from day to day for anybody who's interested. So I'll just do a little basic overview about CBA first, kind of how it got started and our mission statement and just what we do generally. So CBA is a multi-specialty group, which is kind of one of the cool things about it. So that means that we provide a variety of different services and that we have a large variety of clinicians with different specialties. So in addition to ABA services, we provide community living supports, companion care, counseling, person-centered coaching, personal assistance, respite treatment planning, and we have some school contracts that allow us to come in and assist with IEP planning and also with teacher training. And we do that through a variety of different funding sources as well. So we have our private contracts. We have a couple of different private contracts here in Lexington. We have commercial insurance. We have the Michelle P. and SCL waivers. We work with various MCOs, and then we also accept private pay. And rapid skills, I forgot to mention that. That's one of the cool things that we do that is something that CBA has trademarked, so it's kind of a unique thing to us. That is a skill training for parents, teachers, and caregivers that gives them valuable skills for interacting with their child or the individual that they're caring for. CBA's mission statement is to provide necessary skills for anyone experiencing challenges to live happily and independently in the community with dignity and respect. So I think that's pretty cool. I like getting to work for a company that has a mission statement like that. So I'll do a little background of myself briefly. I'm from Central West Virginia originally. I went to West Virginia Wesleyan College and I majored in psychology there, and that's how I kind of got my start in ABA. I was in a psychology program in my undergrad days that was really heavily influenced by ABA. I had an advisor who was really into ABA. We learned a lot about Skinner. We did some rat research with Skinner boxes, and that's kind of how I got my basic knowledge about extinction, reinforcement, extinction burst, spontaneous recovery, all of that. So that was pretty cool. And so I kind of fell in love with that from that point on. And at the time, nobody in that area really knew what ABA was and definitely didn't know what the BACB was or the certification process. So I kind of did a lot of Googling and a lot of internet research and figured that part out on my own. So I kind of figured out in the middle of undergrad that that was the route I wanted to take. I really wanted to work directly with kids one-on-one, preferably with kids on the autism spectrum. And I decided that I wanted to have a job that would allow me to kind of hang out on the floor playing with kids a lot rather than sitting at a desk all day doing counseling or something like that. So for me personally, I couldn't see myself doing a job that required me to sit all day long. I think I would be pretty miserable if I had to do that. So I do get to play around with kids in the floor a lot. So that's going well so far. But after I decided that was the route that I wanted to take, I researched some graduate programs and ABA. I ended up choosing the University of West Florida. I got my master's there, and my husband and I ended up moving to Lexington in 2014. I started working for CBA back in August of 2015, so right around 3 years now I've been with CBA. And as soon as I got started at CBA, I was able to start my supervised fieldwork hours. So I did all of that through CBA. I was able to finish that and complete my hours while I was out working in the field. And then I took my BCBA exam back in December of 2016, and I passed. So that's the end of that journey to BCBA. And now I'm working as a senior BCBA in our Lexington office. So that basically means that I have some other clinicians that I get to supervise, which is really fun. And some of my favorite stories and memories from my experiences in ABA. My favorite part about, well, I don't know if I just have one favorite part. That's kind of maybe narrowing it down too much. But one of my favorite things about my job overall is making connections with the families that I work with, and then getting to see how it impacts them when their child reaches a major milestone that maybe was really difficult and it took them several years to get there. But then when they finally get there and I've formed this relationship with the family, I get to really appreciate how much it means to them that their child is saying their first word or feeding themselves with a spoon for the first time or something like that. And that's just the best. I don't think that you can beat that, really. That's definitely one of my favorite things. Oh, I wanted to talk about our Lexington team a little bit also. I really enjoy being a part of our Lexington group in particular. One of the cool things about the clinicians that are in this area is that they have such a wide variety of educational and work backgrounds that it feels like I have almost every area of expertise covered that I would need to consult with, basically. One of the BCBAs in Lexington is also a psychologist. We have people that have backgrounds in intermediate care facilities when a lot of us are more used to working in the community. So that's valuable experience to have. We have a counselor here who also practices behavior supports, and we have a couple people that have a strong ABI background, so they can help us out with a lot of info about working with individuals with acquired brain injury, which is not something that I have a very strong background in. So that's one of the cool things. And I think being a smaller team, I can't remember right offhand how many clinicians that we have in Lexington now because it grew really rapidly, but it's still small enough that we are all really close. We have a group text going, so we like to text each other and try to plan to get lunch together. We were talking earlier, so hi Lexington people, if anybody's here. Everybody knows that I was about to do this, so I told them that I would give all of them a shout out. It's definitely a fun atmosphere to work in. And Lexington is a super cool place to live too. I've been here, like I said, since 2014, so right about 4 years. And I'm from Central West Virginia. I can't remember if I said that. So even though Lexington is not a super huge city, it was a little bit of a culture shock moving here just because I wasn't used to having so many options as far as restaurants and entertainment and things like that. And I grew up not even being able to have pizza or Chinese food delivered. So being able to easily access a ton of different restaurants is awesome. And there are lots of awesome local restaurants and coffee shops, which are my favorite. So I think it's a good place to live when you're a foodie like myself. Let's see. I wanted to talk about the ABAI conference a little bit. That's one of the cool things about working at CBA as well and working as a BCBA is that you get opportunities for professional development. So you can attend conferences annually and connect with lots of other behavior analysts who have lots of great experiences that they can share. And you get to hear talks about topics that you may have never even thought of, but you can learn important skills and info that you can then bring back and use with your clients in kind of real world settings and see results from that. And it's just cool being able to connect with behavior analysts and kind of build a network that you can use to communicate with others when you get back. So I went for the second time this year to San Diego, and that was awesome. And the previous year I attended at Denver as well. So I'm looking forward to Chicago 2019. We're about to start kind of the planning process and create a planning committee for our CBA team members that choose to go to Chicago for the 2019 conference. Some of my preconceptions about working in ABA. I'm not really sure that I had a ton of preconceptions, not negative ones anyway, because I learned about ABA as a science, but I hadn't heard a lot from behavior analysts who were working in the field because there weren't really any around where I grew up or where I went to college. But I've kind of learned some as I've been working in the field. And I've heard things like, if I want to help children with developmental disabilities, why would I choose ABA over another field? Because some people think that ABA is really restrictive and maybe not very person-centered. I've heard people say that ABA is only for gaining compliance, basically, or teaching children to comply with adults. But so kind of that versus what I've actually seen working in the field. I have seen that ABA is extremely person-centered, and if it's done well, then it definitely is individualized. And I think that part of preconceived notions that people have come from an idea that ABA is one program or technique rather than an entire science. So I think that, I know actually that at least some people think that ABA is only discrete trial teaching. I had another therapist actually see part of my session with a child that she was working with, and afterwards, she said, wow, I've seen some ABA, and I never thought that this particular client would need that, because I thought that ABA meant do this, and she can do those things, so why would she need ABA? And I know that when I've heard other comments similar to that, that's kind of the idea that people have, is that ABA means sitting at a desk for hours at a time and doing table work, which is definitely not always the case. So what I've learned since I've been in the field is that ABA looks completely different for each client. So my day-to-day sessions with my clients look totally different depending on the individual and the skills that they need to build. So I have adult clients who are working on independent living skills, and I'm not going to sit at a desk with them all day. I might take them out grocery shopping, and we might work on making grocery lists. Or I have a client that I have made a task analysis before for doing laundry. So that's kind of what I mean when I say it looks different from everyone. I do have kids that I sit at desks and do some table type work with, but definitely not all of my clients. And what are some of my favorite ABA-based texts or literature? Well, everyone needs to have a copy of the Cooper book, I think. That's always helpful to look back on. Everybody needs to have verbal behavior. Beyond that, I actually purchased the Pass the Big ABA Exam manual, and I found that I really like it for reference as well. I'm actually in my home office, and I'm right next to my bookshelf, so I have some books. So I have my Cooper book, which everyone needs for reference. Oh, and then my manual, as I mentioned, I kind of like to use that for reference sometimes too. I have this one, which I really like. This is Functional Assessment and Program Development for Problem Behavior, a Practical Handbook. So those are some that I have on my shelf right now. Some of my favorite things that I've learned maybe from teachers or mentors. I had a really great supervisor who completed my supervised fieldwork hours, and she had an awesome curriculum, and I think that was helpful for me as a clinician, not just in preparing for the exam. I think it did really well at preparing me for the exam as well, but that's kind of how I learned more practically how to apply different principles. And yeah, so I hope I am not doing BACB supervision at the moment, but that's something I really would like to start doing, and I would like to have a really awesome curriculum that I use for that. I think that's really important. In 5 to 10 years, I don't have any plans on leaving CBA or leaving the area, so I guess it only can go up from here. I don't know what type of position specifically that I would like to be in, but I definitely would like to keep moving up within CBA. Like I just mentioned, I would like to do a lot of BACB supervision and develop a curriculum for that. That's one of my goals. Hi, Amanda. Amanda's here. Some stuff about what I'm working with currently with my clients. The past year or so, I've been doing a lot of X training, and that has been really exciting. I hadn't necessarily done a lot of it until then, and I had the opportunity to work with some of our clinicians here who have a lot more experience with that than I do, and I've gotten to see so much progress with that, not just in increasing the communication skills for my clients, but when your client has a reliable method of communication, they also tend to not engage in challenging behaviors that are related to trying to express their wants and their needs. When they know that they can do a picture exchange and get milk, then they're not going to tantrum and headbang every time they want some milk. So that has been one of the coolest things that I've seen recently with my clients. I think ABA will continue to grow. I had some statistics pulled up about ABA in Kentucky specifically, and it is growing rapidly, which is awesome. And I do think it will continue to grow more, kind of on the trajectory where it is. It definitely does need to be more accessible to individuals with special needs and to other populations as well. I've been to some conferences recently and talked about, I haven't talked specifically about it, but I've heard others talk about using ABA with aging populations and in correctional facilities and things like that, because there are so many different applications. So I think it will continue to grow. A lot of times the issue is with funding. We have to figure out how to fund it with different populations. And that has expanded, though, kind of as ABA has been expanding, we're able to reach a lot more people now than we have been. So where is my, on CBA's website, if you go to the About Us section and you go to the story, you can kind of read a little bit about how CBA was formed, and there's also kind of some of the history of ABA in Kentucky. Here are some statistics. In the year 2000, there were only 3,000 BCBAs in the world, and currently there are over 30,000. So that's pretty awesome. And I know that the growth has been really rapid in Kentucky as well. We've seen a big growth in Lexington specifically and in our office. So I do think it will continue to grow. I don't know the specifics on Kentucky. I know that that's been really rapid as well. So that's all very exciting. Our Lexington team specifically in 2014, 2015 actually, when I started, there was only one clinician working in the Lexington area, and myself and another clinician joined the team at the same time, and then it was just the three of us working in this area for quite a while. And now, like I mentioned earlier, our team is getting so big that I can't exactly remember how many clinicians that we have anymore. And we've gotten an awesome office space now. So we're definitely growing here and throughout Kentucky. Yeah, there's not been a huge ABA presence here. When I first moved here in 2014, I was already working on my master's at the time, and I was actually not able to find anyone to provide my supervised fieldwork hours. So that's kind of, I had a waiting period before I was able to start that because there wasn't a big ABA presence in Lexington. Yeah, so that helps. Jason said we had 10 BCBAs in Lexington a year ago, or in Fayette County, and now we have double that or more. And what separates CBA from the other companies? Like I mentioned when I first started talking about our Lexington team, I think it's awesome that we have people from so many different disciplines with a variety of different educational and work backgrounds on our team. So, but we're still all behavior analysts. So I think that's important too. There are companies that provide behavior support services that aren't necessarily ABA based. So that's important. And then we have the ability, like I mentioned, to consult with the rest of our team, which consists of people who are also psychologists or have a history with individuals with acquired brain injury or have done more work with young children with autism. So we all kind of can help each other out that way. So I think that if you're in Lexington and you're looking for ABA services, if you have someone from our Lexington team, if they aren't able to help you with something or answer a question that you have, we definitely have someone that we can consult with who can help you and who has expertise in that area. So that's kind of what sets CBA apart in Lexington. Why don't we have more companies providing services in Lexington? I'm not really sure. I know that there are, like I mentioned, some other companies that provide behavior support services, but not necessarily ABA-based services. So a lot of the BCBAs that we have in Lexington are working for CBA. So because we have quite a few on our team, what excites me the most about working in ABA, the reason that I got started doing ABA is that I had an interest in autism and I knew that I wanted to help kids that had autism somehow. So what excites me the most is seeing progress in kids that are on the autism spectrum, especially. I have a variety of kids and adults on my caseload, so I'm definitely excited for all of them to make progress. But seeing kids reach milestones like saying their first words or using text or some other method of communication to, especially when we're decreasing potentially dangerous behaviors. Like I mentioned with the PECS training, that's really cool because I've seen a major decrease in challenging behaviors in those individuals. And one kiddo specifically who started using hex really consistently in her home used to have some really severe SIB and aggressive behaviors, and we're seeing so much less of that now that she's able to communicate consistently, and she knows that she can get what she needs when she does that. So that's the most exciting thing. The advice that I would give someone who wants into ABA or would ultimately like to become a BCBA, I think you should definitely have a conversation with a BCBA about how they got started. I didn't know any at the time when I was starting, so that made it kind of difficult, but talk to a BCBA about their program. There are lots of communities on Facebook now where you can get that information, study groups and other communities of behavior analysts that you can talk to, but also research master's programs and research where you want to get your supervision, because I think the supervision curriculum is super important, maybe even for me more so than the curriculum at the university where I did my master's program. So I think you should definitely look into companies where you can potentially complete that field work, and you want to know the person that is providing that for you, because I think that's super important. I have some study materials that I recommend a lot too when people ask me. I showed you guys the Pass the Big ABA manual. I really like that a lot. I'll pull it back out again. So I think this is super important. It's kind of expensive, but it's worth it. I kind of liked to skim through it first and then break it down more and go through it really slowly. And besides that, there are free quizzes on the website for the Cooper book. I think it's prynhall.com/Cooper. You can go there and you can do quizzes for every chapter of the book. And so I went through those kind of for fluency. I went through all of them until I could consistently complete them at 100%. And I think that helped as well. And definitely make your own flashcards. Don't buy flashcards, because that's part of it. And do a safe meds procedure, because that's evidence-based, and the flashcards on their own are not necessarily. So what I'm working on now and in the near future, we have an awesome office space in Lexington, and we're kind of gearing up to start providing some clinic-based services there. So that's something that I'm excited about working on in the near future. BCBAs definitely need support from the company, even though they're all certified. I definitely appreciate having others at CBA that I can consult with if I have something difficult or an area that I don't have a lot of expertise in. So it's important to have a group of clinicians that you can count on when you need somebody with more expertise than you have in a given area. I don't know a whole lot about ABI or about working with individuals who are higher functioning, have strong vocal verbal communication skills, and kind of are working on more social skills type things. That's not really my area of expertise. So it's important to have strong clinicians that you can consult with about stuff like that. I think it would be really hard to be in the community by myself and not have that to go to. My most rewarding moment, I was talking earlier about seeing kids reach milestones with communication or with daily living skills like feeding. And one of the things that stands out to me when I think about that is I got a call from a parent that their daughter had just used her spoon independently for the first time. So we had to shape that behavior basically from nothing. She wouldn't even tolerate the spoon in her mouth. So her parents weren't even feeding her with a spoon. She actually was eating everything with her hands. So we worked on that a lot, and I just thought it was really cool that her parents knew that I would be super excited about that. So they gave me a call and said that she just used a spoon. And that's just an important life skill that we don't necessarily think about. So you guys can check out cbacares.com for more info about CBA. There's some more background on how the company got started and how ABA as a whole is kind of expanding, like I mentioned there. So if you go into the About Us section and go into the history about the company, you can learn more about that. And if you're interested in working for CBA, you can check out cbacares.com/careers. I'll put the other link as well for you. Thank you for watching and asking lots of great questions. How will the clinic space enhance our services? I'll definitely answer that for you before I go. So it's really beneficial to have a clinic space in certain situations that it benefits the client to be in that space rather than at home. So I had a client once who had previously been in a clinic setting and had changed providers and was really hoping that we could get our clinic going because it was helpful for him because he had a younger brother that really wanted attention from mom, and then when I came he wanted attention from me as well. So that kind of made things a little more difficult for him when we're working. So in that situation, it would have been helpful for that kiddo to be seen in a clinic setting rather than at home. So I think it goes both ways. I think that there are clients that it's definitely helpful to see in the community and that I'm really glad that I get to work with in the community. But there are also clients that it's more beneficial to see in a clinic setting. So I'm definitely excited to do that. All right, thanks everybody.